It's February 2025, and I never intended to come back here 50 years later. I don't know what I intended to do 50 years ago, but I'm in Venice Beach, California, a suburb of Los Angeles, right on the ocean, just north of Marina del Rey and just south of Santa Monica. This building behind me here, little 3-story walk-up. I'll tell you a little story about that. Y'all sit down, kids. I'm gonna tell you a story about that. Anyway, let me back up a little bit. June 5th, 1975. I'm 17 years old, and on June 5th, we went and saw Pink Floyd at Irwin Stadium in Hamilton, Ontario. And I think they'd just come out with the Wish You Were Here album, or we're just about to. And so that was a big part of the concert. And literally a few weeks later, my friend Al and I decided to do a little adventure. So I bombed out of school. See, I probably grade 10 or 11, I don't know. I didn't do well in high school. It bored me. But we decided that we were going to go work at the Calgary Stampede. And the way you got around back then is you hitchhiked. You didn't fly everywhere. Nobody flew. We didn't have a car. Did I have a motorcycle? No, I'd gotten rid of my motorcycle, my first one. But anyway, so we're headed up there and out to Calgary, and we get to Thunder Bay. We're cold, we're wet, we're tired, and there's a lot of people hitchhiking on the Trans-Canada Highway. It seems everybody was going west, so it's hard to get rides. So we're in Thunder Bay, and we probably spent a day there, not getting a ride, got frustrated. There's this road that goes south. We looked at our map, because we actually had a map, one that you unfold, and we decided to go down through the States, and we thought maybe we'll cut through the south of Canada, through the States or something. Anyway, met a guy somewhere in Minnesota. His name's John. We said, where are you going? He picked us up at a 1963 International Harvester Jeep, and it was 1975 at the time. And he said, well, I'm going home to California. And Al and I looked at each other and, yeah, okay, we're going to California too. So anyway, that's the preamble to it. Saw Pink Floyd on June 5th, 1975 in Hamilton. A few weeks later, I'm on the road with Al for an adventure. And here I am 50 years later in 2025, back in the same spot. The reason I'm standing in this spot right here is because John, who we spent days with, driving across America and sleeping outside on the ground, he dropped us near here. And we came down here with our little backpacks on. We had the Canadian flags on them. We were the first to do that in 1975. And this place was a bit of a slum. There wasn't much happening. It really was kind of gritty and grody. So we met some guy right about here. And he said, hey, if you want to crash on the roof, lots of people crash on the roof here, up there, of this 3-story walk-up. And we were like, yeah, okay, that's cool, man. Yeah, all right, 1975, peace and love. And but we said, we got to get something to eat first. So we walked down here to the boardwalk, which at that time was pretty scuzzy. It hasn't really gotten much better, but it's trendy. And there's a lot of people down here. It's probably a lot safer. Anyway, the waitress in, I believe it was called Karen's Place, little restaurant, little hippy-dippy restaurant. The waitress, we told her that some guy said we could sleep up on top of this building. She said, oh, don't do that. They'll just rob you. They're setting you up for a robbery. So we're like, okay, well, we'll figure something else out. So we leave the restaurant. We come outside there on the boardwalk, and these 5 black guys came up to us. There's nobody else around. There's literally nobody here. And we probably haven't seen 2 black people together in our lives, living in St. Thomas, Ontario, all our lives. But the 5 guys come up to us, and we're pretty intimidated. And they started joking with us at first, and then they started pushing us around. And they wanted our money, and they wanted this and that. They wanted our backpacks. And fortunately, there was a Mexican guy, pretty big muscles. He came up, and he started talking these guys off us. And he kind of whispered to us, or in a low voice, he says, "That's my car over there. Just walk slowly towards it and get in." I remember it was a brown Dodge Dart. So we did that, and he drove us up, 3, 4, 5 miles up to Santa Monica, and we slept on the beach that night under a lifeguard stand. So, bookends. 17 years old, I hitchhiked to California. I'd already traveled a little bit with Mom and Dad because we used to go to Florida in the winters, and I'd been out west with my grandmother, but never really been anywhere. Been to the States and been to Canada. Here we are 50 years later, and if this is the bookend to an adventurous life, how much can you fit into 50 years? From 1975, hitchhiking to California, and then the 50 years that followed, all the places I was after that. But I don't want to call it bookends because that sounds kind of cheesy, and I don't think this is a bookend because I'm not done with my adventures yet. Who knows? I don't know. But how about this is bookends for the first 50 years. And here I am back in Venice Beach to think about that, to think about how much I fit in to a 50-year period. Now, I realize my 50-year period in the grand scheme of things is no more than a speck in time. I always use that speck in time definition about our lives. That's why I try not to take it too seriously. Although the other end of the coin on that is, the other side of the coin is your life is pretty important to you because you're living in it. And you don't want to die because you don't know where you're going, all that other stuff. But as you get older, you really do start to understand how insignificant your existence is to the greater whatever. But it's pretty important to you, and maybe pretty important to some of the people that you love. So, and what can we leave behind? Well, some people leave art, some people leave music, statues, stories, whatever. But you can also leave behind what you actually did, if it was interesting. And I didn't set out to have an interesting life. I have no idea why I ended up this way, but it's been an unusual life. I've traveled a lot. Been to about 85 countries. I'll cover more in chapters and in the books that I write, but my 50 years in between 1975 and 2025 right now has been jam-packed, very full. So that's my rambling speech about being here in Venice in 2025. Bye.